The meteor shower was unlike anything Adira Nyland had ever witnessed. Standing outside her greenhouse dome, she watched celestial fragments paint fiery streaks across the twilight sky of Nova Terrarium Colony. One particular meteor blazed brighter than the others, its trajectory seemingly aimed directly at her. Instead of burning out, it disappeared behind the hills bordering her property. Adira pushed her copper-red hair from her face, wondering if she should investigate. Being the colony's only independent botanist gave her the freedom to indulge her curiosity, but also the responsibility of maintaining the experimental crops that might one day feed this struggling settlement. Tomorrow, she decided, speaking to the evening air as she often did, living alone these past 3 years. I'll check it out tomorrow. But sleep eluded her that night. Her dreams were filled with whispers in a language she didn't understand but somehow felt familiar, like a half-forgotten lullaby. When dawn broke, she found herself walking toward the foothills before even having her morning tea. The impact site wasn't difficult to find. A circle of lush, vibrant vegetation surrounded a shallow crater where nothing had grown before. Instead of scorched earth, wildflowers of impossible colors bloomed, their faces turned toward the center where a man lay unconscious. Hello? Adira approached cautiously, her hand reaching for the communicator in her pocket but not activating it. The colony's response team would quarantine the area, confiscate anything unusual, and this was definitely unusual. The stranger appeared human, tall, with olive skin and hair the color of polished obsidian. He wore a simple garment resembling a flight suit, its material iridescent like the wings of a butterfly. What took her breath away were the delicate patterns etched across his exposed skin, silvery lines that seemed to shift and pulse with his breathing. As a scientist, Adira knew she should report this immediately. As a human being who had always felt like an outsider herself, she couldn't bring herself to make the call. Instead, she touched his shoulder gently. Can you hear me? His eyes flew open, eyes of such deep violet they appeared almost black at first glance. He gasped, scrambling backward before wincing in pain. I won't hurt you, Adira said, raising her hands. You're injured, let me help. The stranger looked at her, then at his surroundings with evident confusion. When he spoke, his voice was melodic but hesitant, as if remembering how to form words. Where am I? Nova Terrarium Colony, my land specifically. She gestured to her greenhouse dome visible in the distance. I'm Adira, do you have a name? He touched his forehead, the silvery patterns momentarily glowing brighter. I don't remember, there was light then falling. His face contorted with the effort of recollection. Let's start with getting you somewhere safe, she offered her hand. Can you walk? He nodded, accepting her help. As their fingers touched, a spark of energy passed between them, causing the wildflowers around them to suddenly turn, following their movement as if magnetized. Neither mentioned it, though both noticed. The walk back to her greenhouse was slow, the stranger stopping occasionally to touch plants along the path. Each time the vegetation seemed to respond, growing more vibrant. By the time they reached her home, Adira's scientific mind was racing with questions she dared not ask yet. You can rest here, she said, showing him to her small living quarters attached to the main greenhouse. I'll find you some clothes and something to eat. Thank you, he said, his eyes taking in the profusion of plants visible through the connecting door. Something like recognition flickered across his face. Your garden, it sings. Adira paused. What do you mean? The plants, he gestured toward the greenhouse. They have voices, can't you hear them? Instead of dismissing him, Adira felt a strange resonance with his words. How many times had she worked among her plants, feeling as if they were communicating with her in some subtle language beyond human perception? What do they say? She asked softly. A smile transformed his face. They say you understand them better than most of your kind. He touched one of the silvery lines on his arm. May I? She nodded, following him into the greenhouse. He approached a section of failing crops, her most recent experiment to develop drought-resistant wheat. Despite her best efforts, the plants were withering. The stranger knelt beside them, placing his palms above the dying stalks without touching them. The patterns on his skin began to glow with soft blue light that flowed from his hands into the soil. Before Adira's astonished eyes, the wheat straightened, color returning to the formerly yellowed stalks. Within moments they stood tall and healthy, heavy with grain. How did you? She couldn't finish the sentence, her scientific worldview crumbling in the face of what she'd witnessed. He looked as surprised as she was. I don't know how I did that, his brow furrowed, but it feels natural. That evening, as they shared a simple meal, Adira made a decision. Until you remember who you are, I'll call you Thorn. Thorn, he repeated, testing the name. Why? She smiled. Because you appeared in my garden like something from a fairy tale, and every rose has its thorns, beautiful but potentially dangerous. Am I dangerous? He asked, genuine concern in his violet eyes. I don't think so, she replied honestly, but you're definitely not from around here. Over the following days, they fell into an unexpected partnership. Thorn couldn't remember his past, but his intuitive understanding of plant life was extraordinary. Together, they worked in the greenhouse, Adira documenting his abilities while teaching him about her world. The failing crops flourished under his touch, producing yields that would significantly help the struggling colony. What Adira didn't record in her scientific journal were the moments in between, how their hands would brush while working, sending ripples of warmth through her body, how his laughter made the plants seem to lean toward him, how she found herself sharing thoughts she'd never voiced to another soul. 2 weeks after his arrival, Adira returned from a supply run to find Thorn standing motionless in the center of the greenhouse, surrounded by floating motes of light that resembled stars. Thorn, she approached cautiously. The motes collapsed into his skin, the patterns glowing briefly before fading. He turned to her, his eyes troubled. I remembered something I'm not. I don't think I'm human, Adira. Instead of fear, she felt a strange sense of confirmation. I know, she said simply. What are you then? I don't know exactly, but I think I came here for a reason. He gestured to the thriving plants around them, something about healing, about balance. That night, beneath a sky crowded with stars, they sat on the roof of the greenhouse. Adira found herself telling him about her isolation in the colony, how other settlers viewed her independent research with suspicion. I've always felt different, she confessed, like I belonged somewhere else. Thorn's fingers intertwined with hers, the now familiar energy flowing between them. Perhaps that's why we found each other. When he kissed her, the greenhouse below them bloomed out of season, flowers opening to catch the starlight. Neither noticed, too absorbed in the connection that defied explanation, a botanist and a being from beyond the stars, finding in each other something neither knew they were seeking. What they didn't see was the drone hovering at the perimeter of Adira's property, its cameras capturing everything, transmitting data to those who had been tracking the unusual meteor since it entered the planet's atmosphere. Those who would stop at nothing to possess such power. In the quiet night surrounded by flourishing life, Adira and Thorn stood at the threshold of a journey neither could have anticipated, one that would challenge the very definitions of humanity, sacrifice, and love. The morning sun filtered through the greenhouse dome, casting rainbow prisms across Adira's laboratory. She carefully measured growth rates of the formerly dying wheat, now thriving beyond all scientific explanation. The data defied every agricultural principle she knew. Growth accelerated by 400%, nutrient density doubled, water requirements halved. Remarkable, she murmured, making another notation in her journal. She'd been careful to document everything while revealing nothing about Thorn's involvement. Some instinct warned her to keep his abilities secret, even as the scientist in her yearned to share these revolutionary findings. Behind her, Thorn stood with his hands hovering over a tray of seedlings. The silvery patterns on his skin pulsed gently as tiny sprouts reached toward him like children seeking affection. In the 2 months since his arrival, his presence had transformed not just her greenhouse, but the entire surrounding landscape. The previously barren soil of Nova Terrarium now supported growth in areas where nothing had survived before. They're speaking again, Thorn said quietly, his violet eyes distant. More clearly now. Adira set down her tablet. These moments had become more frequent, Thorn slipping into a trance-like state, receiving information from some source she couldn't perceive. What are they saying? She asked, joining him by the seedlings. They're showing me images of myself, his brow furrowed in concentration. I see others like me traversing between stars. We're caretakers, I think. The patterns, he traced the silvery lines on his forearm, they're maps of worlds we've tended. Adira's heart quickened. Each recovered memory brought Thorn closer to his true identity, but also heightened her fear of losing him. Your people sound like cosmic gardeners, she said, trying to keep her voice light. Yes, his expression brightened with recognition. We call ourselves Stellara in your language. We travel to worlds whose ecological systems are failing and help restore balance. His eyes focused on hers. That's why I'm here, Adira. Nova Terrarium was dying. She couldn't deny it. The colony had struggled since its founding, the soil resistant to earth crops, water sources mysteriously depleting. Recent scientific surveys predicted total agricultural collapse within 5 years. But you crashed, she reminded him. This wasn't a planned visit. No, Thorn frowned. Something interfered with my transit. I wasn't supposed to take physical form. We usually work through the planetary consciousness, encouraging natural healing. Before Adira could respond, an alert chimed from her security system. She moved quickly to the monitor, tension coiling in her stomach. Colony officials, she said grimly, 3 vehicles approaching. Thorn moved to her side, his patterns dimming as if instinctively hiding. Are they coming for me? I don't know, but we can't take chances. She grabbed his hand, leading him to a hidden compartment beneath her laboratory floor, originally designed to protect delicate seedlings during dust storms. Stay here until I come for you. His fingers tightened around hers. Be careful, Adira. The kiss they shared was brief, but charged with emotion. She closed the compartment just as vehicle engines rumbled outside her dome. Director Harlow Jensen led the delegation, his angular face set with determination. Behind him stood two security officers and Elias Vantage, owner of Vantage Agronomics, the corporation that controlled most of Nova Terrarium's resources. Director Jensen, Adira greeted them coolly. What brings the administration to my humble greenhouse? Jensen's eyes scanned the lush interior. Routine inspection, Dr. Nyland. Colony sensors have detected unusual biological activity in this sector. My research has been quite successful lately, she gestured to her thriving plants. Nothing unusual about good science. Vantage stepped forward, his expensive suit incongruous in the humid greenhouse. Your modesty is admirable, Doctor, but our satellites show accelerated growth patterns throughout your entire property, patterns that defy conventional botany. He moved to the wheat experiment, examining the impossibly robust stalks. I've been in agricultural development for 30 years. This isn't just good science. Perhaps you've underestimated what independent research can accomplish without corporate limitations. Adira replied smoothly, though her pulse raced. Jensen cleared his throat. Dr. Nyland, we also detected an unregistered meteor impact near your property approximately 8 weeks ago. Protocol requires immediate reporting of any extraterrestrial material. I saw the meteor shower, she acknowledged. Nothing landed on my property. Then you won't mind if we conduct a thorough sweep. Vantage's smile didn't reach his eyes. The colony's agricultural future could depend on your breakthroughs. For 3 excruciating hours, Adira watched them inspect her greenhouse, taking samples of soil and plant tissue. She answered their questions with technical jargon and half-truths, her mind constantly on thorn hidden beneath their feet. When they finally departed, Vantage lingered. Whatever you've discovered, Dr. Nyland, remember that Vantage Agronomics has resources to develop it properly. The colony needs solutions, not secrets. Only when their vehicles disappeared over the horizon did Adira release her breath and open the hidden compartment. Thorn emerged, his patterns glowing weakly. They suspect something, she said, helping him up. Yes, he agreed, but they don't know what. He swayed slightly, his normally vibrant presence dimmed. Being confined affected me, I need starlight. That night they lay in the open field behind the greenhouse, Thorn absorbing the stellar radiation that seemed to sustain him. Above them, constellations formed patterns that mirrored those on his skin. I remembered more while hiding, he said softly. The Stellara have been guiding planetary development for millennia. We're born of the same cosmic material as stars, existing primarily as energy rather than matter. Adira turned to face him, her scientific mind struggling with concepts beyond human understanding. Then why are you physical now? The crash forced a complete manifestation. It's not our natural state. His fingers traced patterns in the air, matching distant star formations. I should be able to transition back once my work is complete. The implication hung heavy between them. Completion meant leaving. And what exactly is your work? She asked, afraid of the answer. To heal this world's connection to the cosmic web. Every planet has natural energy channels, ley lines, some cultures call them. Here they've been disrupted, causing the ecological deterioration. Adira thought of the colony's struggles, the failing crops, diminishing water supplies. Can you fix it? I believe so, Thorn's patterns brightened with determination. But it will require accessing the planetary nexus point, where all energy lines converge. Where is that? I'm not certain yet, but the plants will guide us. They're connected to it naturally. His expression grew troubled. However, that man today, Vantage, he radiates disruption. His presence interferes with energy patterns. Adira wasn't surprised. Vantage's corporation had aggressively mined Nova Terrarium's resources since colonization began. He's dangerous, she agreed, and now he's interested in us. Thorn's hand found hers in the darkness, their fingers intertwining. In my memories, I exist as pure energy moving between worlds without attachment. His voice softened. But now, in this form with you, I feel things I never imagined possible. She turned to face him fully, heart aching with both joy and fear. Is that good or bad? It's beautiful, he whispered, and terrifying. Stellara aren't supposed to form bonds with planetary beings, it clouds our purpose. And has your purpose been clouded? She asked. Instead of answering, he kissed her. Unlike their previous embraces, this one sparked something profound, the patterns on his skin flowing onto hers where they touched, creating temporary constellations across her arms. The sensation was electric, connecting her to something vast and ancient. For a moment she could hear what he heard, the whispers of plants, the song of soil, the deep rumble of planetary rhythms. When they separated, breathless, small flowers had bloomed in a circle around them, despite the hard-packed earth. That answers my question, Adira said softly. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Adira found Juniper Wade, her only friend in the colony and fellow scientist, waiting outside the greenhouse. You need to be careful, Juniper warned after being invited inside. Vantage has been asking questions about you throughout the settlement. Something about yesterday's inspection spooked him. What kind of questions? Adira tried to sound casual while mentally calculating how quickly she could hide Thorn if necessary. About your research, your supply requests, Juniper lowered her voice, and about whether you've had any visitors. Adira's stomach dropped. That's ridiculous, everyone knows I work alone. There's more, Juniper hesitated. Vantage deployed remote sensing drones around your property perimeter this morning. Officially, they're conducting agricultural surveys. But they're watching me, Adira finished grimly. After Juniper left, Adira found Thorn in the experimental garden, his hands buried in soil up to his wrists, patterns pulsing rapidly. I've found it, he said without looking up. The nexus point, it's calling to me. Where? The cave system beneath Crescent Ridge. He withdrew his hands, leaving the soil laced with luminescent traces. All the disrupted energy lines converge there. Adira knew the location. An area Vantage Agronomics had attempted to mine years earlier before abandoning it as geologically unstable. We need to move quickly, Thorn continued, urgency in his voice. The balance is deteriorating faster than I realized, and he finally met her eyes. I'm beginning to fade, Adira. She noticed then what she'd been refusing to see. His form appeared slightly translucent in the bright sunlight, the edges of his being less defined. What happens if you fade completely? Either I'll return to my natural state and ascend, or he left the alternative unspoken. That evening, they prepared for the journey to Crescent Ridge, gathering supplies while avoiding the drones patrolling the perimeter. What they didn't realize was that the soil samples taken during the inspection had already revealed traces of unknown elements that matched exactly what Vantage's abandoned mining operation had discovered years before at Crescent Ridge. Elements that, according to the corporation's classified research, could revolutionize interstellar travel. As twilight descended, Vantage stood in his private laboratory, examining the sample material that glowed with the same silvery light as the patterns on Thorn's skin. Behind him, monitors displayed footage of the strange man who had appeared on Adira's property precisely when the unusual meteor was tracked entering atmosphere. Prepare the extraction team, he ordered his security chief. We move tonight. Under the cover of darkness, Adira and Thorn slipped out of the greenhouse, unaware they were headed toward a collision of worlds, where cosmic purpose would confront human greed and where love would be tested against the very fabric of existence itself.